The joint that we're going to be welding together to demonstrate our fillet weld technique is T-joints. Cut, prep, tack, weld. So what we want to do is we want to find some 1/8 inch material and we want to cut strips that are roughly 2 inches by 7 inches long. Prep them so your material through the weld is going to be nice and shiny and nice and clean. So in order to clamp our T-joints together, we're going to use a corner magnet. Now, proper use of a corner magnet. This is a corner magnet. If you are using a corner magnet, that is your 90 degree. So that would be square. This is square, that's parallel, that's 45. These aren't very expensive. You can normally find them at any welding supply store or your home improvement store closest to you. Now, when we're doing this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cheat a little bit. We're actually gonna use the flat side of this to put these together. This is just for practice. We don't need an exact 90 degree angle. So what we're gonna do is just put that magnet right there, turn this like so, put it right in there so our root of our joint is nice and even with our base. Now, cut, prep, tack, weld, we are now on tacking. What we're gonna do for our tacks, we're gonna tack a total of 8 times. We're gonna start at the front, 1, come to the back side, opposite, 2, remove your magnet, okay? You don't wanna weld your magnet to your piece. And then we're gonna come back up here, back here, and then we're gonna do it 4 more times. Basically mirror opposite from one another. Then we're gonna get into our technique. Gear up. Don't forget to go through your checklist. Start from the back of your machine, work your way forward, making sure that this is set properly for 1/8 inch material. Covered. Now we're going to clean off those tacks with our stainless steel wire brush using our MIG pliers to control the piece. Okay, so now that we got the piece tacked together, what we want to do is we want to go over our rules and how to actually execute our technique. So when we are going into these corners, these 90 degree corners, our work angle for basic fillet welds is going to be 45 degrees into that corner. Then what we want to do is we want to drop into a relatively 45 degree up to 60 degrees. So you could be right here. That's your setup. Now, when you're executing this, why it's called the wheel is you're puddling up first, but you're carrying your puddle in the direction of motion, okay, up and over, as if it were a wheel. So, starting on the right side, going into the left, you would come up and over counterclockwise. Opposite side, going into the left, or excuse me, going into the right from the left, you would go clockwise, up and over, as a wheel rolls in the direction of movement. So, what you want to do, set up your rules, get in position, do a little practice first. So it would be nice and tight. The motion would be nice and even, nice and tight, just like this as you move through. So brace and support, set up, make sure you can see it. Now, vision. Vision is important, okay? One, you want to move your head out of the way of the fumes that are rising, but two, you want to be able to see your arc, you want to be able to see your puddle, and you want to see what you are doing with the puddle as you move through the weld. Now, a lot of people like looking underneath this way. For some reason, that gives me vertigo. I actually like looking over top of it from the back. Now, people have their different preferences with this. This is one of those personal preferences. So what I like to do is I like to split evenly the side of the nozzle and the vertical surface. All right, so when I'm looking at it, I'm looking from behind, just like this, using my fingers to execute the motion through the weld as I pull it through. Now remember, each time you come up and over, you're only moving about the thickness of the material as you travel, trying to keep that arc on the very front edge of the puddle as you bring it towards you. So puddle up and take it with you. All right, I'm going to demonstrate on this first weld zone right here. Cover. The key to fillet welds is being able to visualize how big the puddle needs to be to create the proper size legs. You need to see your ANC edge as you move through the weld. So if you've executed your weld properly, keeping all of your rules in play, your drag angle, your stick out, your travel speed, and you're conducting your technique properly, what should happen is you have a nice even face to your bead. Your edges, your toes of your bead are nice and even as well, with no undercutting and no bulging out. So as you can see from this one, if I turn it 45 degrees, you can see that it's nice and flat and there's ripples going through the face of the weld. This is pretty much every single time I pull the arc up through the face of the puddle as I'm conducting my technique. Now, when we move to the opposite side, the setup's gonna be a little weird because I'm right-handed. So if I'm right-handed, I'm on the right side going into the left, that's a more natural feel for me. Now, if I'm on the left side going into the right, I have to reposition so I set up my rules accordingly. So as I'm moving through, I still have a good work angle, good drag angle, good stick out, and I wanna make sure I'm executing my technique properly. Practice this with your lid up and the machine off a couple of times before starting, just so you can get some muscle memory built up. Then try it out. Now I'm going to demonstrate on this middle section right here. I'm gonna fire it up and get going. So there you have it, that's the wheel. Now, anytime you're conducting any weld or any technique of welding, what you're trying to do, the objective here is to keep all of your rules consistent as you move through the weld. You want your work angle, your drag angle, your stick out, and your travel speed to stay consistent in order to create the proper size bead through the weld. The trick to fillet welds is you have to be able to visualize your ANC edge or your toes.